Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your hosts Edward McQueen and April Garner.
And we are live. Good evening, April. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, Brother Edward?
Fine. You look great over there. Like the leopard.
Thank you very much.
The leopard outfit. I don't know what you're trying to do.
Keep my husband happy. Look.
Yeah, okay. All right. We'll stop there. Yeah. So good evening to our audience and welcome to our program. Tonight's show, as you see at the bottom of the in our DNA and how DNA affects your health. So we're going to start right off here, and I will start myself with, not that I'm an expert at it, but we've got two people who've been delving into this research, and we're going to deal with this subject of deoxyribonucleic acid. That's
you took a stab at it, didn't you?
Yeah, the three-letter word for that is DNA. But you know, a lot of people have heard. In fact, I'd say most people. If you've ever gone to the doctor, you know, and the doctor talk to you, he will mention DNA. It could be in your DNA. We can't find out what's wrong with it, but it could be in the DNA and stuff like that. You know, so I guess majority of us probably don't even bother to go to find out what that is. All they know that is research being done. And speaking of research, that's what we're going to talk about today with our two guests. We have Dr. Caitlin. This is from MUSC, Dr. Caitlin Allen, and I'm going to say Dr. Lee Moultrie. I'm going to give him a doctor title today because he does so much. He does so much research himself, literal research, and he's very, very resourceful. So April, let's get right into it and get with our two guests, Dr. Allen and I'm going to say Dr. Moultrie. I know it's just Lee Moultrie, but you to me you're a doctor. Okay, I mean you're resourceful and so forth. So
I appreciate that and thank you for that honor. You're giving me a doctor after Dr. Allen has already given me a doctor.
I gave him one a minute ago too. So
okay, well, probably appropriately so. And I'd like to tell the audience he's been very resourceful to me, and he and I have had some very good conversations that, to me, are just valuable and offered guidance in a lot of things, which we won't get into immediately today. But I'm certainly grateful for that. And
thank you for the opportunity to share.
Yeah, and so to again, we have Dr. Caitlin Allen. So we'll start with you, Dr. Allen, if you can give the audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So thank you for the invite. I am happy and honored to be here chatting with you all. So I am an assistant professor in the Department of Public Health Sciences at Medical University of South Carolina. And as you know, Edward, I think you led in really nicely with what we'll be talking about today, which is really, I think a little more broadly, I'll say precision medicine, right? That might be something that folks are familiar with, where the idea is gathering as much information about an individual, about a population, to be able to tailor recommendations to them, right? And so a lot of the work that I'm doing and the InterDNASC project that you mentioned is focused on exactly that, precision medicine, just using as much information, including DNA, to help us better prevent and treat disease. So happy to jump off from there, but I'll maybe turn it back over to you or Lee for introductions as well.
Well, Lee, I'm sure you can carry on, Lee. It was just, I think I explained as much as I could what the program was going to be about. So Lee, if you want to move forward with that, take us a bit farther.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be on the air tonight again. But I think Dr. Allen has led into it because she is the co-PI on the project in our DNA at MUSC. So as she is the co-PI, I'll be following her lead. As she indicated, we're looking at precision medicine. When we're looking at precision medicine, all four of us have different body makeups. So the science community wants to find out what is good for Brother Ed relative to what is good for Sister April and Sister Caitlin and Brother Moultrie. All four of us are different. So in our DNA, because where we came from, no matter where it's at, how do we make sure we tailor medicine as close as specific to you, your children, your grandchildren? So it's not only about us, it's about our children, grandchildren, our community, and society as a whole.
Wow, absolutely.
And one thing I would like to add in that also, Brother Ed, when we as African Americans, for a large part, don't participate, we cannot get medicines that more tailored to our DNA to help our children and grandchildren.
Right.
So that's why it's so much important that we participate, and especially in this project in our DNA, because we have a large number of participants so far, but unfortunately, we don't have as many African Americans in South Carolina, because this is a South Carolina-based project. We don't have as many African Americans participating in the project yet. So we are hoping through what we're discussing tonight, an article that was in the Panorama newspaper last week that went out throughout South Carolina discussing the project.
Okay.
And also in the Kaiser Family Health magazine that went out throughout the nation. So we are doing all we can to reach out to the African American community and to answer the questions tonight. Some of the people in the audience may have specific questions. So Dr. Allen is here to answer those questions. I am a committee member and a participant. I've already participated, so I'll yield it back to you now.
Okay. So based on what the both of you have said, I've gathered that we have to address the issue of a lack of clinical trials or lack of participation in clinical trials, dealing to whatever or address whatever illness there is that needs to be looked at again, either for a cure or something to use as a therapy.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly an important component of all of this, is making sure that we have participants from all walks of life that are part of trials, right? And I can talk a little bit more about inner DNASC in just a minute and like exactly what that involves. But I think more generally, if we think about participating in trials and in research in general, it is so critical that we're not just recruiting the same people that over and over again, right? So you oftentimes see that our research is skewed toward white women, for example, because white women are more likely to go to the doctor. They're more likely to say yes to answering surveys and things like that, right? And if we are constantly probing the same groups, then we're not going to get representative answers that are, for in our instance, that are representing the entire population of South Carolina, right? And so that's where I know Lee always says this, like making sure that everyone's voice is heard. And the only way to do that is to really actively participate. And we, within our project, are really passionate about making sure that people get their questions answered about participating in our DNASC, and that they feel comfortable with those answers. They understand what they're participating in, what they're enrolling in, what they'll learn about their health. And so I think that's really important context, and something that I care really deeply about, is not just that we're reaching out to the easiest groups, or we're just blasting messages across the whole state, but that we're actually communicating with everyone, and we're able to have these types of more intimate and one-on-one conversations.
So Dr. Allen, would you say that this project and other studies that are similar to this are rooted in the need to understand why there are so many health disparities, as in, access, mainly healthcare disparities and access to healthcare? Or what would you say was the main catalyst for even jump-starting a project like this?
Yeah, so this project in our DNASC is falls under the umbrella of precision medicine, right? So it falls under this idea that we want to make sure that people have as much information about their health as possible. And it's easy for us to get kind of a lot of information. We know you can get your blood pressure pretty easily, your heart rate pretty easily. You can get your blood sugar, et cetera. Like all that is pretty standard. But to be able to know your genetic information is a whole nother level of awareness. And so the catalyst is really, I think, more broadly, like, how do we make sure that we get as much information to people as possible, and so that they can make more informed health decisions. So the project in our DNASC, it's called a population-wide genomic screening project, right? So that's technical jargon, basically saying that we're looking at your genetic makeup, your DNA. And I think Brother Edward said it better. I wouldn't even try to say the full DNA.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at that for three things. First is hereditary breast and ovarian cancer syndrome. So we're looking to see if people have genes that would increase their risk for getting breast cancer and ovarian cancer. That's BRCA1 and 2. You might have heard of those genes, are kind of, in popular media a lot. The second is Lynch syndrome. So that is genes that increase your risk for colorectal cancer, which is also a devastating disease. But if we know that you have a gene that increases your risk, there are things you can do to prevent colorectal cancer as well as breast and ovarian cancer. And then the third is familial hypercholesterolemia, which is just a fancy way of saying a higher cholesterol, right? So it's a predisposition in your family, or because of your genes, that you're going to have higher cholesterol. So we test for those genes, and if you have, we call it a pathogenic variant, if you have some mutation in your DNA, then we let you know, and then you can work with our genetic counselors as well as doctors to do preventative actions, right? So for example, get screened more often, right? Or take drugs that are helping to prevent diseases, or having some of the medications be tailored to your specific genetic makeup.
So
Go ahead, brother. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So if for example, they find what the DNA is and how it's going to contribute to, for example, colon cancer. So what would you develop a medicine based on that? That would still be challenging, though, right?
So for this in particular, if someone has a increased risk for getting colorectal cancer,
Right.
then there are guidelines that tell your doctor and tell you sort of what to do to help prevent or reduce the likelihood that you're going to get colon cancer, or breast cancer, or ovarian cancer. So I don't have the exact guidelines in front of me, but just as an example, an average risk person is supposed to get a colonoscopy, let's say every 10 years, right? Someone who has a mutation or some that has Lynch syndrome, that an increased risk for colorectal cancer, they are going to it's going to be recommended that they get a colonoscopy every 5 years, for example, right? So it's just more frequent screening. In more extreme cases, there's, for BRCA1 and 2, which is hereditary breast and ovarian cancer, there are different, instead of doing mammograms, you might do an MRI more frequently. There are some medications you can take to lower your risk of breast or ovarian cancer. There's some surgeries that you could elect to do. So there's all sorts of different prevention activities. I'm happy to talk more about some of the drug components and sort of the medication element of that, if that's of interest. But sort of, I think to start, it's just helpful to think about, I think about it more as prevention or reducing the likelihood that you're ever going to develop any of the cancers or high blood pressure.
So Dr. Allen, according to the website, the goal or the aim is to enroll 100,000 individuals into this program or this project. Why 100,000?
So 100,000, I think, is a goal because it's a nice number. It's a goal because we really want to be able to provide as many people with this information as possible. I don't think we're stuck to 100,000. If we reach 110, 120, we'll go there. But these studies are really helpful, or this information is really helpful, not only to return to participants and patients, but it's also helpful because it gives us a database of information that we're able to continue to do research about, right? So we can discover new genes that might increase your risk for something else, or we have this sort of large database, and this type of research just requires large numbers of people. Mm-hmm. So another example that might be familiar to people is the All of Us study. It was a study that came out of Barack Obama's sort of precision.
Lee, we've lost 2 people.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, that was interesting. So she was talking about the All of Us study. Is that anything that you can elaborate on?
That's a national study that's going on right now. And
we got you back, Caitlin. Not sure what happened.
I don't know. It just kicked me out for a second.
Okay. And we have Brother Edward back as well. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what happened.
Go ahead, Caitlin. Mm-hmm. Or
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Caitlin, you're explaining about the All of Us under the Obama administration.
Yes. So I was just kind of giving an example of another, like the question was, why so many people? And so All of Us is just a great example of a national effort that's similar to what we're doing in South Carolina. And the idea there is the same thing, where they're actually trying to enroll 1 million people, right? So they are trying to get 1 million people from across the United States to provide samples and answer surveys to get information about kind of long-term information about health. Another great example is something that's being kicked off by the American Cancer Society called the Voices Project. And they are specifically enrolling Black women to, Lee's got an advertisement there. And they're trying to enroll a cohort of all Black women so that they can do research specifically about sort of this, it's more long-term. What are the risk factors specific to this population compared to other populations, right? And so I think there's many of these sort of large kind of cohort types of studies, because the more people that participate, the better, information we can get.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So MUSC is partnering with Helix. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So Helix is our lab, right? So they're the ones that actually process the samples. So the way the project works is you enroll in this study. You sign a consent form, and then you can receive a sample collection kit at home. Lee's got one there. And it's saliva. So you actually spit into a tube, and then you mail that to Helix. And they are a lab company. They process that, and then your results are returned back to you. And some people ask, why are you having Helix do this, which is an external company, versus doing it at MUSC, like in our own labs? And a lot of the reason is because Helix is able to do it really, really fast, right? So they can get results back very quickly. Mm-hmm. And they're able to do it at scale, right? So for us to be able to try to process that many saliva samples efficiently, it just logistically wouldn't work. So Helix has been a fantastic partner. They're trusted in this space. They participate in our community advisory board groups, and they're doing this type of work sort of around the country as well.
Okay. And I know that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Lee.
I was going to say, Caitlin, Dr. Allen, because she's a PhD, she can tell you that I was the worst client that they had in processing this thing here. Because in my career in the Air Force, I was a shipper. I shipped things. So in order for me to put my item into this kit, it was a little small box to put this in and drop it in the mail and hope that it would get there. I said it was no way possible. And I argued with them up and down. And
he did.
They said, Mr. do not worry about it. This is going to be okay. I dropped it in the mail, and in 3 days, that item arrived in San Diego, California. I think it's somewhere in California.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what in the hell? How is it possible? Because there was actually no insulation in this box, and nothing happened to the item at all. Mm-hmm. So believe me, with my military career and being retired 30 years, I was like, ain't no way this is going to work. And so I had several conversations with them to make sure that this works. So it does work, okay?
And you knew right when it got there, right? So you actually could track. You saw every step.
Every part
I get it.
Of the process.
You don't want it to get lost. Like that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Every step of the way. Tell them about the other side, like getting your results too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And everything is tracked. And you're sent an email when it goes through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. I think it's up to phase 5. And they give you all the results and they email everything back to you. So it's great.
That is good information. That is good information. I was, as you all were talking, I thought about something. I thought about the fact that, we're talking about, again, DNA, but would you, it is defined as instructions of how to make the body, right? Instruction for, for making the body, your body and my body. Like a
You're talking about
blueprint.
DNA is.
Yeah, there's
You're
instructions.
saying that's what DNA. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, instructions. So how do you get this over to people somebody who not can familiarize or can't grasp what this thing can do readily? If you all found ways for which to make it attractive, in order to, like you, Caitlin, you're the implementer, like attractive to implement this kind of project.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Like a lot of the things I've been talking about are things that I find valuable for participating, right? Like I think it would be really important and fascinating to know whether you have an increased risk for cancer or whether you have an increased risk for higher cholesterol, right? I think it's really interesting that there's a research component, or that you can have your drugs tailored to your DNA. Like all of that is really important to me. But that might not be a motivator for everyone. Sometimes we hear that actually people don't want to know, right? They'd rather just not. And so there's so many other reasons I think to participate, and Lee can chime in here too, but some of them are that some of the results that we return are actually about your family. So your ancestry, there's information about kind of where you've come from around the world, and that component is really interesting to people. There's some more hobby genetics, which is like, do you like the taste of cilantro? Are you high caffeine or low caffeine tolerance? Like those things might be a bit interesting about yourself. But then I also think people are motivated or interested. I hear a lot, like it's really about the next generation, right? So it's like that knowing this information about myself, right, is helpful, but it's actually more helpful that now my family knows, right? Or that you're kind of giving back, people are giving back to the community, things like that. So I don't know, Lee, if there's other kind of motivators or reasons that you've heard that about why people might participate outside of just the health benefits.
Well, I one of the things that I came across doing a presentation a couple of years ago in Columbia, South Carolina, and I looked up the 10 top diseases killing us, people in South Carolina, white, black, or indifferent. And it were cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and so on and so forth. And the thing that I learned from that was that it's centered on premature death. Premature death is anyone that dies before 75 years old. So now, as we have premature death, and we're saying, okay, how do we help people live a little bit longer and in good health? I'm 67, so when I had prostate cancer treatment 2 years ago, I came out of treatment and they said my blood pressure was too high. And I knew after 24 years in being in healthcare, if my blood pressure was too high, I could potentially have a stroke or a heart attack. So I had to adjust my diet. Then my A1C for diabetes went to 7.1. So I didn't want to have amputation. So what I did was I learned how to start preparing my food better, differently than I traditionally did in North Charleston. And I lost, and within 5 months of me changing my diet, exercising more, I lost 35 pounds. I went to MUSC, did a body composition analysis, did not know what that was. They said, well, Mr. Moultrie, you're now 66 years old, but your body is performing as a 60-year-old. Okay, now,
Is
yes.
everyone experiencing the same thing I'm experiencing?
What's that?
Is everyone experiencing the same thing I'm experiencing? Did everybody go off a second?
No.
No, we're here.
No? Okay.
So when I changed my diet, exercise, I lost 35 pounds, eating the same traditional food I grew up on, collard greens, cabbage, and okra soup, but preparing them differently. The doctor said, no, the guys at the fitness center say, you're numerically 66 years old, but your body is performing as a 60-year-old. So I gained 6 years of life. Now, as we are talking about the DNA study, we're looking at the blue zone because we're trying to move away from premature death, and the blue zones where people live to be 100 years old and older and in good health by just adjusting their diet, exercise, understanding your body composition, your DNA, you can do these things. And we can teach other people how to do the same thing. That's all it's about.
So let me get on
You're breaking up.
There's something going on with your feed, Brother Edward. Try again. It's like your speed has gone down.
Are we on this same level that you're talking about?
I think he's behind us as well.
Yeah.
I'm going in and out here.
Yeah, you are. You're frozen on the screen. I'm going to remove you for just a second, and then I'll pop you back in a moment, okay? Okay. So, you know, the information that you've provided, of course, when you're talking to a community, and namely, you know, through this platform as an example, when you're talking to a community that, like Priscilla Fuller has mentioned in her comment, you know, has a perception of about clinical trials and requests for this type of gathering of genetic information, there's a perception that, you know, they can't really trust what's going to happen or what's going to be done with the information that's gathered, or even, you know, the testing samples and things like that. And I think that is just, you know, and Brother Lee and I talked about this yesterday. It's just because of things that happened historically that I believe as a community, you know, a lot of, as a matter of fact, Black individuals, as an example, have not really been able to get over or forget, things such as the, Tuskegee experiment and, what happened with, Henrietta Lacks and things like that. And so, I know it's got to be challenging to disseminate this type of information to a population of people who really need to hear it, and they really need to participate in this type of study. What has MUSC done to break through those barriers and to kind of remove these the stigma from this type of testing? It's because these aren't experiments. I think that's one thing that we need to say. It's not an experiment. This is a gathering of information in order to better inform individuals about, their health profiles. And, I was just thinking to myself as I was, checking out the information, I can tell you that, one of those three, health indicators that could possibly be like a positive for any individual who takes the test, I can actually say, hey, I know that I'm going to test yes for at least one of those three. I know that personally. So I'm actually of the frame of mind that I would like to do this genetic testing. And I think that sometimes when it's about breaking through barriers, it's about trusting individuals who are in our communities who can help, to spread this information in positive ways, either through their own, personal experience or whatever. So hopefully MUSC has recognized that. And I'm sure, for example, Lee is an ambassador and an advocate for this type of study. What are some other things that we can do in the community to make sure that this information gets out to everyone and that they feel comfortable with, participating in these types of studies.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything that you said, April. I think that what you have outlined is what is on my mind, what keeps me up at night, literally, right? Like thinking about the importance of making sure that we are having these conversations, that we're making all of this research accessible to everyone. And so I'll start first by saying, like, by acknowledging what you mentioned about Henrietta Lacks, about the Tuskegee study, right? Like there have been horrific historical issues with research. Like that did happen, and that and I acknowledge that, right? Yeah. And so knowing that, there have been so many high level and local efforts to ensure that those types of things don't happen again, right? And so this is as simple as the fact that we have institutional review boards, right? So we at MUSC are under, and for this project, are under an IRB, an institutional review board. And they look at every single study that comes through to make sure that we are compliant, that we are, there are huge numbers of protocols that we have to develop and put through IRBs. They audit us regularly. They check on everything. So it's not just a one and done deal. It's very rigorous and thorough. So we're under an IRB. And then more specifically for this study, we also have an extra layer of protection because we thought it was so important for us that are people who might access this information to really go through another layer about how they might use or work with genetic data, right? So any MUSC researcher that is interested in gaining access to this type of research has to put another protocol through, and it's reviewed specifically with an eye toward how it might impact the community, right? They have to write a short summary about it so that we can share it with the community members, community advisory board, and all of that. So there's sort of that additional layer. And so from the beginning of this project, as an implementation scientist and as someone that cares about diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, like all of those things, I just said we have to do this in partnership with a community advisory board. We have to do this in partnership with community organizations that are trusted, right? As you said, to just be able to get the message out with people that understand and can sort of spread the word. So we have worked since day one. We can attest since day one with our community advisory board, and we run everything through them. I mean, we really share the brochures and the materials. We have created presentations that you can get from our website. You could download and you could share it at your church. You could share the brochures, etc., so that anyone who sort of is interested in disseminating the information could do so. And then I think in other ways, we've really tried to, tried to make sure that the actual process is as streamlined and accessible as possible, right? Because that's important, right? And, Lee jokingly talked about his experience earlier, but like that was a learning opportunity for us about how we might communicate what the process is and where the steps, might be so we can alleviate concerns, et cetera. So, we're doing at-home samples. We're doing sample collection at churches. We're doing it at health fairs, sort of as many ways as possible. We just want to listen and hear kind of where we could be, right? And where we could collaborate in a way that is most valuable to to people who are on the fence or who are potentially interested in the project?
You know, April, I'll add this aspect of it also. That is an excellent question, and I love it. Me being a civil rights activist, whereas I was the lead plaintiff on a case that went to the U.S. Supreme Court in 2004 against Charleston County of over 350,000 people, and being retired from the Air Force 30 years. This year is my 30th year being retired. And then in 2007, I was the plaintiff on another case to go to the U.S. Supreme Court for the Voting Rights Act. When I sit on committees and boards, I am not there. I am there representing myself, my family, the community, and society as a whole. I am not there to be their buddy and check off a box and say everything is okay. As she just shared with you a few minutes ago, I am holding the system accountable to what they're supposed to be doing. I am not there just to be friends. So it's a difference when you are getting paid to do this stuff, or you have the commitment from the community to make sure that we are protected. Even when I was an employee of MUSC myself, to do research, we had to have, when you're talking about the Tuskegee experiment, when we're doing research, we have to do this thing called a Miami study. And it's like 20 different modules that we have to go through, because a lot of things that what we learned from the Tuskegee experiment was that the systems became more rigid to make sure and protective of the community and society as a whole. As Dr. Allen was speaking of the Institutional Review Board, all of these different things, even if someone is doing a study with heart disease and they feel as though that they're not getting respected in any way, they have an 800 number that they can call of the IRB and say, hey, I have a problem. They're not listening to me. What can I do? And that's what everyone is told. This is the 800 number to call away from the project that you can address this issue. So in actuality, because of the injustices that happened in the past, it has made the system so much more better. Now, is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. But if there's any injustices or anything we notice, we're stopping that. We calling it up. Okay. So the African American community, that's why when people Google my name, they see all the committees and boards I sit on. I'm sitting there for what? To find out, can we use the system or not? We have to be a part. Now, the one thing I like to share with people is we cannot continue. Well, let me say we can't. I would like us not to continue holding the healthcare system hostage to some injustices, but come to the table and help us identify what may be going wrong, if any. Because Lee Moultrie can't be 50 million places. April can't be 50 million places. Brother Ed can't be 50 million places. We need more people at the table. And as you're participating, we're making life better for our children and grandchildren, that we can live a long, healthy life. If people are not familiar with the blue zone, just Google blue, the word blue, and zone. You'll see the different countries that they live in. They live to be 100 years old and older and in good shape. Now, just know, as we indicated, these trials that we're working through, and these are things you can be doing in your church. Clinical trials, focus groups, and churches can be getting compensated for this also. and individuals also. So those are a couple of things.
Well, that's good to know. And because I think it's going to take the community to help get this information out. Obviously MUSC, and I've put the website up so that people can go and to the website, see the information, learn more about it. There is a link on there if you want to volunteer to do this. And it's going to be important for the community to get involved as boots on the ground to help spread the word because MUSC can't possibly be everywhere. And even though the information is available on websites, it's on brochures and things like that, there's nothing better than someone sharing their lived experience or, being able to talk live with a community and answer the questions, especially the more difficult questions. And we can't dismiss the fact that, we're talking about DNA here. And so, whatever can be done to ensure individuals in the community that, this information is being collected for the greater good, namely for people who are impacted by the 3 health risks that are mentioned on that website. And what I found intriguing about that is that it mentions, Lee, that if you test positive for any one of the conditions that are being screened from, as far as the personal health risks are concerned, that you're offered genetic counseling at no cost, a genetic counseling appointment at no cost. Beyond that, of course, you would have to see a clinician. But for the most part, at least getting that genetic counseling to understand why you're predispositioned to have a certain condition, I think that's very valuable. And it certainly is, that's a part of, generational wealth is understanding your health. It isn't just money.
If you identify something, as Dr. Allen indicated a few minutes ago, if you find something that may be problematic for you that you did not know before, you can start making some adjustments in your diet. Mm-hmm. Like if you didn't know that you had an intolerance to coffee, but that study told you that, then more than likely you'll stop drinking coffee and you'll realize what your body is doing. And I was diagnosed with cancer from what? Having a urinary problem. They weren't searching for cancer. They were trying to find out, why did I have a urinary problem? I kept saying I have a urinary problem. When they searched, then they found the cancer. So now, as individuals are doing this study, should anyone, as you just said a few minutes ago, April, anyone that goes to MUSC website finds that information and they can ask for a community member to come speak to them, come online like this. If it's close in the area or any place in here, they can reach out to me. They can just find me on, they can just Google my name, Lee Moultrie, LeeMoultrie.com or whatever. I can speak to you via Zoom, church. You get an airplane to fly me to your city, I'll come there. But I can do, and we have other community members also. As Dr. Allen said, we have other community members and other community organizations. We have Avery Research Center sitting there, American Heart Association sitting there, DHAC is there, Helix is there. So we have so many different organizations. Another aspect of what the study is finding out is once we are at this capacity, then we are looking at, once we hit that 100,000 or we start seeing a trend one way or another, Dr. Allen and Dr. Judge says, hey, could we start searching for other diseases also? Mm-hmm. And that's what we start doing also.
Okay, yeah, we're kind of like running out of time, but I'm not sure if I go back to this 100,000 goal. This sounds like it should be a population sample for some statistics. Is that, am I on the right track with that? I kind of think, because it's 100,000.
Yeah.
That's a global.
I don't know if we said how many we've enrolled, did we? We've been keeping that under wraps.
Well, I don't know.
So we have enrolled 55,000 people. So
Yeah.
we're over halfway to getting to that goal. And
But that's enough to give you a statistical sample, a population sample, right? For some number, maybe that amount could be for a country. I mean, for another country.
But brother Ed, but what Dr. Allen is bringing out is still skewed towards African Americans.
Okay, good. All right.
We need to get more African Americans so we can have a balance out for the state of South Carolina.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. This is the website. Thank you for bringing that up.
Mm-hmm. So I'm sharing here. It's really simple. To make it completely simple, even if you don't have an MUSC MyChart account, you can establish one and request the kit be sent to your home. It can be mailed to your address. And this is just for South Carolina residents. Are you only focusing on South Carolina right now, or
Yeah, we're focused on South Carolina, but we certainly have participants from everywhere. I think the only state that is unable to participate is New York.
Gotcha. Simple instructions here on, what happens after you send in the kit, how to view your results. And also on the left-hand side here, as you can see, there's more information about, how to volunteer in the community, just like we talked about a little bit earlier, staff information, community resources. So, I think it's, definitely essential that our community gets involved from the standpoint of, bringing this knowledge to, as Priscilla mentioned, the churches, major organizations kind of taking this up as a community service effort even. There's always community health fairs and things that are going on in the area because, one thing's for sure, two things for certain, as we are left out of, the collection of information like this, or we leave ourselves out of the collection of information like this, clinical trials, that's a totally different show that we could talk about, but it certainly does meld into what we're talking about, whatever underpins this. It's harder to provide healthcare services for community, meaning the Black community, if we are approaching it from a one-size-fits-all standpoint. And it's just like Brother Lee said earlier, healthcare is not a one-size-fits-all. I think that's the problem with healthcare in a lot of ways, is that the belief is, this medicine I'm prescribing for April is going to work for Lee and it's going to work for Caitlin, and that's not always the case. But if they don't understand how what we're predispositioned to either, contract or to, our family history and things like that, then you can't really develop the proper medications for us, or the proper treatments, even if it doesn't involve an actual medication. So this is so important. Larry White, thank you for watching. He said he'd like to get started in Conway. See?
Yes.
That's impact.
Please, yeah. And the website has information. I think the email address is available on the website, or you can email me directly at AllenCat, ALLENCAT, at musc.edu. So yeah, right there, email us. You can click that and it'll send, or you can make a phone call. And then April, I was just going to have you show one more thing, if you don't mind. I know we're at time, but particularly from the community perspective, there are resources that we created. If you click community resources and scroll down to the bottom, there's a toolkit, there's the brochures. We will mail you brochures. We'll mail you flyers. You can also download this information and share it in your or volunteer to join us at some health fairs and things like that, or let us know about health fairs that are coming up. So just wanted to point that in particular out, since you kind of had the call to action for involvement.
And April,
this is fantastic.
And April, as you indicated, Council Member Larry White just said he wanted that in Conway. As I've shared with so many people for many years, Councilman Larry White was my mentor when I started in healthcare 24 years ago.
Wow.
That's great to hear.
That's full circle. That's full circle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Full
That's
circle,
great to hear.
He asked if you reached out to the South Carolina Public Health Association.
I
Okay.
don't believe so, actually. We have the Department of Health and Environmental Control as part of our committee, but that's a great idea, Larry. So we can certainly reach out or chat more about that.
Okay.
And a number of places I've reached out.
Don't tell everything.
Okay, Larry, I'll keep the rest to ourselves, brother. But also, this information has gone nationwide. What we are talking about, getting more African Americans to participate. April, if you go back to that homepage on the DNA.
Okay, where would you like me to go? Back to the homepage?
Yeah. On the left side down, you say NRDNA in the news.
Right.
Where am I?
Scroll down some more.
Okay. Oh, right here. Yes, I was looking at it earlier.
Yeah. Okay. Click on that.
This genetics, one. Yes.
So that's an article that I was featured in. The Milken Institute called me when they saw that in Washington, D.C., and someone else called me relative to that when they saw it in Los Angeles, California's newspaper. So this is getting around that we are working to get more African Americans to participate in the study, and it's being talked about throughout the nation, not only just here. You guys are tapping into it to make sure our community, Conway, Myrtle Beach area, is getting access to this information, that we can get more people to participate, and especially the African American community. One thing I share with Dr. Allen is right. She stays up all night worrying about African Americans not participating. I say, Dr. Allen, that's not your responsibility. We're giving the information. It's up to us African Americans within South Carolina to participate. Anyone that needs more information, please reach out to me, Lee Moultrie. You'll find me online or whatever. Find me, but go to the website to email Dr. Allen and everyone in the office, and you can request me from the website, and I'll be wherever you need to be, at your church, fraternities, sororities, or whatever. We just need to get more African Americans to participate.
And I'm going to say that is a very recent article. It was published April 24th of this year, and you're able to share it across social media. I'm going to share it, as a matter of fact, across social media. And if for those of you who are watching, please share it across your social media channels so that more people can read it and find out more about this genetic study. Priscilla Fuller asked, how many of the 55,000 are African Americans? Dr. Allen, do you know that information?
Yes. Yeah, so we're at about 15%. So I could do the math for the exact number. About 15% of the participants are
about 7,500 or something like that.
Yep. And so we would like to see it get to about 30%, which is closer to South Carolina's population.
Larry also suggests the Georgetown Diabetes Coalition is a great group to work with also, if you haven't heard of them. So once again, just excellent information. And I'm curious, and I believe I'll sign up.
Great. Give us a call.
That's right. That's right. So, Brother Edward, do you have any closing remarks? This has been an excellent show, and we can certainly have Dr. Allen and Lee back for updates on, how well the project is going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, my closing remarks, April, have to do with, first of all, sign up. Everybody. And secondly, the both of you have been very resourceful, and I defer to Lee because I think it was Lee that brought this thing together almost, right? Correct, April? I mean, in terms
Yes.
of, yeah, bringing this type of information, and kudos to you, man, really. But when we want to have you back again, and the next time, I'd like to dwell on the subject of two cancers. Well, one's cancer, the other one is a sickness. One, the pancreatic cancer, which seems like that there's just nothing they can do about that. Nothing. And Caitlin, you might agree with me on that. I don't know, but DNA hasn't even touched the bottom of the crust of that yet, right? So, and the other one, of course, is sickle cell, which they've made a lot of advances in. And kudos to Howard University in Washington, D.C., who had the Sickle Cell Center for a while, and they had good participation in terms of clinical trials. And sure enough, the results of that outcome, or the results of that, is now people are living longer. One time, the threshold of the median age was 33 years old for a person with sickle cell. Now, I know some people who are 60 years old. Okay, and getting on up there. So, and I think that was as a result of some of the DNA, some of the research at Howard University in Washington, D.C., and they did a tremendous job there. I mean, of course, the center is shut down now because they've made so much advancement into that is not. I guess they look at it as if there's not a need, to do it anymore. So, because just to find out how many more years a person can live. Of course, they've seen now, like I said, 60 years, stuff like that. So, I just want to make it that kind of synonymous scenario that I thought we could have a discussion in the next time. I certainly want to have you back on again to talk about developments with your DNA research. So,
I yield to Dr. Allen.
Yeah, happy to. I'm not an expert in pancreatic or sickle cell, but those are great examples of precision medicine research and exactly what this type of project could help yield in the future. What discovery in those areas, discovery in chronic kidney disease, et cetera. Like that's a great historical example of what happened and what could happen with this type of research. So happy to get you connected with folks in that area. I think my takeaway is just thank you so much for having us. As you said, participate if you're willing. We will answer questions if you have them. Our phones and emails are open. We're happy to hear recommendations, thoughts, questions, comments, concerns. That's what we're here for. And would love to be back to share positive updates, in the next several months. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, everyone.
And when everybody gets your kit at home, do it. The trick that I learned, do it first thing in the morning. As soon as you get up in the morning, don't brush your teeth or anything. Just do the saliva in the kit, because you can't eat for an hour before you do the sample. Because some people were doing samples on other things, DNA studies, and they've had a hamburger and it came back that they were a cow. So we don't want you doing that. Yeah.
You can't eat before, but we will need to reprocess. We would send you another kit if you ate.
Yeah. So make sure, do it first thing in the morning. You haven't eaten anything. You've been sleeping all night long. Do your kit and you're good.
That's
well, I think that's some of the best advice you give everybody tonight. But they don't want to come back designated as a cow. That is so funny. That really is funny. So, well, thank you both tonight. Lee, it is always a pleasure to have you on the show. Keep sending us good stuff. We're already working on some topics. We're not going to tell everybody right now. Like Larry said, don't tell everything. but we're already working on some other topics that people
I told you he was resourceful. I told you.
Yes. He keeps sending information. I'm like, oh, that's a great show. That could be a good show too. So we're gonna do it. We're gonna keep you in rotation, as they say.
Absolutely.
And Caitlin, Dr. Allen, you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you all for being with us tonight. Please share this broadcast. Remember, it is on wcmagazine.net. And you can go to our YouTube channel, grab the link, share it across social media. I just shared it to my LinkedIn. It was that simple. Go to that article and click the social media icons and share. And we certainly appreciate all the comments and questions that came through tonight. Thank you, Councilman Larry White, Priscilla Fuller, our guests from Greenville and Columbia. Thank you so much for watching tonight. Coretta and Vonda, we really do appreciate you, and all the others who chose not to chime in, because Brother Ed, we know they'll watch. They won't say anything, but
they'll see me passing on the street. Now, see me in a restaurant or something.
Exactly.
You know, you could have said so and so, but
right. And if you want to help in your community, like, you know, as Larry is doing, which is a great example to set, I'm sure he's going to make some things happen. Thank you, Josephine Burgos from Charlotte, North Carolina. You know, just go to that website and email Dr. Allen, and I'm sure they'll get you started as soon as possible. So again, thank you all for joining us tonight. The replay will be available for the next week, and we hope to see you next week. Juneteenth is tomorrow. Please participate in some type of activity in commemoration of Freedom Day, and we certainly do appreciate having this information as we try to make sure that our community is more knowledgeable of things that will help us to live better, longer lives. So thank you all very much, and have a great evening.
Godspeed.
Godspeed.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner.